Welcome back to PopCon, everybody. A salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. I'm really excited because tonight we're going to explore the fantastical and often surreal world of video game artwork. And I'm even talking long before cartridges. Hand-drawn original graphics that adorn those tall, dark cabinets, drawing the player in, inviting them into their unusual realm. Join me, Victor, your Gen X host, as we explore the art of curiosity as PopCon spotlights the arcade. There's a lot of videos about the top video game or the greatest video games of all time, or the arcade experience in its heyday. But we're going to focus on the often forgotten unsung heroes when the video game frontier was new. The game's advertising, their personal billboard, the arcade cabinet graphic artwork. And there's no better way to start than at the beginning. All the way back to 1978 with Space Invaders. These aliens should look familiar. The imposing figures seem right out of a 1950s teen sci-fi. Just add the title and Screaming Woman in Terror and the poster would be complete. This imagery and even the arcade cabinets were all new, and these images were their marketing. There were actually two main versions of this art, and I know it got me curious, but alas, there was no more to the story. And I guess these were supposed to represent the aliens right here. Only these depictions to draw from as you fight in the multi-directional shooter style that was the classic Space Invaders. Not far behind in '79 was Asteroids. Perhaps inspired by Star Wars, one of the earliest cabinets showcased sleek and straightforward graphics depicting space battles. But this was no Star Wars. Electric lights beamed across the screen in the form of out-of-control asteroids, where your tiny ship maneuvered and often over-maneuvered out of their path while blasting them into smaller pieces to continue to blast. Simple but effective graphics told you what you needed to know in this multi-directional shoot-'em-up. Out-of-this-world imagination came to life from the artwork depicting strange new planets and civilizations, possibly being attacked by insectoid spaceships. That's all I need? Give me a quarter? True, you won't find out in the game or the other art on the cabinet what the whole story is. Just a sprinkle of an idea that you can develop while avoiding those spaceships in the fast-paced, basic fixed shooter type gameplay. With a number of shooting space adventures already in the field, Japan sends a very traditionally cutesy-styled character and his villains to the United States in 1980. The art depicts our titular character in a style we don't usually represent our hero as, but there was no denying the plot of this maze game. Get our little chomper out of the path of those quick-moving ghosts. The action depicted in the illustration lends itself to be fast-paced and a lot of fun. Mission accomplished. Is it an album cover or arcade cabinet art? This period is where the surreal original artwork of music albums seemed to be in line with the fantasy-inspired otherworldly arcade cabinet artwork. There were no franchises these games were built from, they were making their own, and like albums, the sky was the limit with imaginative and original artwork that let you interpret the rest of the story. The huge side art was minimal in message but big on imagery. It attacked the senses and piqued your interest into this fixed shooter style game. Dimly lit with a touch of back alley danger, the neon lights permeated seemingly smoky windowless landscapes where digital blips and beeps interrupt the soundtrack of the era. This was the arcade, rows of intimidating electronic monoliths like Tempest. Fantasy realms were growing in the movies, and this evil interstellar art was a sight to behold, as images like this were rarely seen on video games, or on screen for that matter. Only 2 years later, a 1983 movie, Kroll, seems to have drawn inspiration from the marquee art of this hot ticket for their frightful villain, who was almost completely void from the film as well. A first in many ways, with changing next levels, selecting difficulty, and a version of Continue that was new to the arena. This anxiety-inducing rollerball-activated 3D-esque shooting game had you deciding what story was being told, since nothing in the artwork matched the actual gameplay. Ms. Pac-Man arrived on the scene in 1981. Cited as one of the few better sequels, Ms. Pac-Man just improved upon the original maze craze. Unlike many movies, Ms. Pac-Man took the original and leveled it up, if you know what I mean. More maze variations and some bumpers between rounds that we looked forward to. The art did not go too far from the original. Even choosing a simpler color scheme and a style for our Ms. Pac that is iconic, if it also has nothing to do with her game look of simply adding a pink bow to her male counterpart. An action game with almost endless stress, where you rarely saw someone get past the first level and therefore did not believe other levels even existed. The action depicted on the side art in one panel seems to say exactly what's going on in the game. The bright colors have Mario looking to one-up Donkey Kong to save the damsel in distress. Definitely a precursor to Princess Peach. The artwork continued around the front to showcase some cartoon-style gameplay that reinforced this platform gaming style. Keeping it simple, Defender had bold and big artwork of yellow and red filling the sides of the cabinet. Space. A spaceman. The rest is up to you. And the other front panel art doesn't fill in any blanks. Just use your imagination and try to survive 3 lives of scrolling shooter. Armed with quarters, you only had the bright marquees and the strange and fantastic artwork applied to the sides of the heavy wood cabinets to attract you into a mysterious realm, dark foreboding castle, the endless void of space, or the speed of a racetrack. How many of you remember tabletop arcade cabinets? Actually, I loved when I saw these rare variants of the arcade and loved to sit head to head with an opponent. A classy bit of furniture in the early 80s. Hold on, there is more to come in part 1, and maybe you've seen your favorite already. You'll see that 1981 and 1982 were definitely the golden age of arcade releases, but while you wait for part 2, show me the love and click the like, and don't forget to subscribe, because PopCon's got some good stuff you don't want to miss. Time to level up. This was my pizza place go-to. Another rollerball style controlled fixed shooter. It was a great game to build confidence, but like so many others, the levels would get increasingly more difficult and faster until you couldn't handle the pressure. The huge centipede creature on the side is all we needed to know. In bright color and fairly detailed, this large insect looked mad and ready to attack. Intertwined between mushrooms and these blast effects that looked very reminiscent to the pinball machine, you knew what was in store. The front-facing art continued the story by depicting other creatures you may encounter in the game. When Frogger hit the scene in 1981, it was a guilty pleasure, and you could get far enough in the game to garner hope, but those gators disguised as logs were my undoing. Sure, the artwork showed what seemed to be the titular amphibian, complete with a tie and briefcase, apparently late for work, trying not to be roadkill. So, what else do you need to know? There is little else to the game, and it made sense with the bold and clear illustration on the sides, if not small. Beyond the lit marquee, the front just showed a graphic of a car tire tread, which of course confirmed the stakes. Get Frogger across the street, and I guess through the swamp, while avoiding all the pitfalls along the way. Pitfall's another story. One of the most fun original action games to date, the gameplay in Joust was original, with heroes on the backs of ostriches and storks and villains on buzzards. Dropping on top of the foe and gathering the eggs made this a favorite. Even with the subdued brown and golds, the knights on top of their ostriches adorning the sides did interest you. It stood apart. It even popularized cooperative 2-person play. The control board and screen also completed the story at hand, but you wouldn't know the terror of the pterodactyl until you had to come face to face with it. A maze platform type hybrid originally called Hamburger, Burger Time would have you keeping away from oversized food ingredients that apparently did not want you to use them in your burger recipe. Chef Pete Pepper was armed with a shaker of pepper, as it was the only thing to kill the pursuing egg, pickle, or sausage link, an odd collection of burger haters. The oversized chef with a pea on his hat as the only side art left a lot to the imagination, but his friendly and cocky appearance did have you curious. And once you saw the other art depicting the chef avoiding the offending food products, all to make the biggest burgers in town, you had to drop coin. Lured by the assurance of adventure and excitement, the colorful illustrations captured your imagination, and eventually into the distraction of an 8-bit character world that required your projection of the promise made by the raw art enveloping this technical marvel. Moon Patrol. Like Space Invaders, there was a sense of classic sci-fi in the bold 2-color art wrapped around the cabinet, a Flash Gordon-style font with mid-century modern styling depicting a well-gunned vehicle traversing unfamiliar terrain. Well, that is the story, and that's how it's played. Moon Patrol is also considered the introduction of full parallax scrolling in a side-scrolling game. Sure, the gameplay may not look as polished as the art on the sides, and one hesitation with your joystick movement has you nose first in a crater. But Moon Patrol was action-packed, and we knew it before even pressing start. Donkey Kong Jr., a more maddening sequel, but loved just as much. Donkey Kong Jr. is a platform game that does not stray from his father too much. The artwork is changed to give us a new jungle landscape, and even the art has similarities with its predecessor. Characters are familiar, but other gameplay is alluded to. You know what you're getting into, and this sequel must have been popular. It got its own breakfast cereal. Q*bert. This upstart tried to elbow in on his Pac-Man Donkey Kong competition, even if he didn't have any arms. Strange characters and a premise with seemingly no instigation, our quirky cursing friend is iconic, maybe just not as much as his cutesy popular pixelated pals. Perhaps the large bold color art of the comic cursing character drew us in, and we played this action puzzle element type video game with surprise. As though the art showed us characters, we did not know what we were getting into. But once on board our own flying disc, we couldn't get enough. The end is only the beginning. I know I couldn't hit all of them, and I may have missed your favorite. Let me know which was yours and what memory you have of playing these fantastic arcade games. They were some of the most iconic in a time where the panic of knowing you only had 3 lives was on par with death in real life. Arcades were a place to congregate, to meet old friends, and make new ones. True, home systems were burgeoning in this era and had their ups and downs. Thanks, E.T. But the arcade cabinet wasn't going anywhere, just yet. The room of towering cabinets was sometimes bold enough, and befuddling graphics was always a treat. Sadly, the artists of much of this hand-drawn original art have been lost to time, but their work will last forever. Please, if you enjoyed this content, there is much more, so please like and subscribe. I'm Victor, your Gen X host of PopCon, a salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s, so until next time.